President Trump has delivered us the big, beautiful bill. He's reportedly going to flood our treasury with $600 billion of newfound revenue through tariffs. The workforce seems a little unsteady right now, and we're waiting for Jerome Powell to act as we speak, recording this interview on Wednesday. Here to help us sort it all out is Erik Weir. He's a financial advisor. He went to Georgia State University and the Harvard Extension School. He is an author. He's just written a new book entitled Who's Eating Your Pie? Erik, welcome to The Truth.
I'm glad to be on the show, and thank you, John.
Well, thank you very much. Glad to have you. So, how do you think the U.S. economy is doing right now? You know, I keep watching these people like Ray Dalio, who I really like, Michael Burry, Kiyosaki, what was his name?
Is it Robert Kiyosaki?
Robert Kiyosaki. He wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He's down there in your neck of the woods. He's in Hilton Head. And they have been, the big short guy, Michael.
Is it Lewis? Michael Lewis?
Close. Anyway, they're all predicting doom and gloom. They have been predicting a recession literally for 4 years.
Big doom, 100%. Yeah.
And I keep asking myself, why? And so you know what's going to happen? At some point, a downturn is inevitable, and they're going to come out and say, see, I told you so.
Yeah.
But they're like a broke clock. They're right twice a day.
Yeah, it's so true. But I think what they missed is the tsunami of cash that went into the U.S. economy with COVID. I mean, there were trillions of dollars. So you have a $20 trillion a year economy that received, tens of trillions of dollars, and then you run into what's called the money multiplier. And the money multiplier means that the money goes through the banking system, it gets spent, it gets reloaned, spent, reloaned, consumed, paying people. And it just became a tsunami of cash, which triggered inflation, which also we've never had that in history. So it's hard to predict. But the cash has been, as my understanding, is only recently where you're back. The average person has the average amount of cash that they did pre-COVID-19. That being said, the economy is pretty strong.
It would seem that way, but unemployment is staying high at 4.3%. We were hoping that it might tick down a little bit, but then we find out that the Bureau of Labor Statistics have lied to the American people for over a year, saying that we had created more jobs than we did. When they revised the numbers, we found that we were down, that we had lost 1 million jobs.
Wow.
Now, my question is, what would Jerome Powell have done and the Fed if they had had that news earlier?
Well, if you look at Norway and other countries, I mean, they're either stable, and Norway's already had an interest rate cut. The UK is talking about it. So, I mean, globally, things are slowing over where they were. From an unemployment perspective, you look at unemployment for a 20-year history, it's still sort of low, but at the same time, the costs have been high, the consumer's being squeezed, and I think a cut in interest rates would be very good for the economy.
Yeah, absolutely. But when you say it's relatively low, it's relatively low unless you remember that 4.3% that are unemployed.
What's interesting is it's more than double that, because there are people. What doesn't get counted are the people who gave up.
The people who gave up, exactly.
And I've heard that's over 10%. So if you look at the shadow unemployment, it's much worse.
Well, that's a scary number. And then, when Trump left office, the unemployment rate, as I recall, was 3.2%, which is effectively full employment. So
Correct.
When you look at it, 3.2 versus 4.3, that's a full 1% divided by 3. That's a 33% increase in unemployment under the Biden administration, and in fairness, during the first 9 months of the Trump administration. So will interest rates fix that problem, do you think?
I think they help, but I don't think they fix it right away. I mean, I think if Jerome goes 25 basis points, which is what he's predicted to do, statistics say 90% chance, he may do nothing, or he could do 50.
Well, if he does nothing, I think he'll get run out of town on a rail, and I'd be the first one to
I
provide the locomotive.
I don't disagree with you with that, but it's slow moving. So what it does, I think, is encourages business to take more risk because then now they feel we're in a decreasing interest rate cycle, and they'll take more risk. They'll hire more people. They'll start more projects. So that in turn will help the economy and will help employment.
Well, also the housing market has been on its heels for the last 3 years, and so we need rate reduction so that the housing market can come back, which is a big component of our economy, and it's important to millennials.
100%. I mean, this generation is putting off home purchasing longer than any generation has in recent American history, and it's the first generation that feels they won't attain the lifestyle that their parents had. So it's something to take note of, and the housing is a major concern.
Are you following the humanoid robot very much?
I'm watching it. It's fascinating to see what it does. It's going to cause a lot of change.
It is going to cause a lot of change, and I think that a lot of these uh, menial, repetitive, and dangerous tasks will be replaced by the robot. And I was just out in Los Angeles last week. I attended the All in One Summit.
Oh yeah.
That's the number one podcast in the world with Jason Kalasakis and
Hmm.
uh, the crypto czar David Sachs and David Friedman
Sure.
and who am I leaving out? The just brilliant guys that are all billionaires.
Hmm.
And the vendors had prototypes of the robots there.
It had to be remarkable.
They can't really do much, but they can sure walk and spin and lie down and roll over and play dead. I mean, it is on our front doorsteps.
Well, it's a matter of time till it's front and center. No doubt about that.
Well, I want one. The sooner the better.
Oh yeah, yeah. But that's going to change things. I have a friend that developed a business where it picks produce, and they use drones, and they'll fly up and it'll pull the produce. And they found that the damage rate is lower, and it runs 24 hours a day. So
Yeah.
it's going to change certain things, and no one falls and hurts or breaks their back or some of the terrible things that happen. When you're harvesting fruit very high on a ladder. But it's something to change. It's also it creates a lot of output, and it creates a lot of economic growth in theory as you begin to build your robot workforce.
Well, I mean, labor is a constraint on our output.
It is.
And so, if you can solve the labor problem, Elon Musk says that we're entering an age of abundance where
Yes.
literally no one will want for anything.
It's remarkable to think about, isn't it? I've seen just videos and YouTubes of what some of the robots can do, but if you had someone that could do your task, a robot or two of them, I mean, it would give you a lot more options to work on creative things or other things that maybe you're not compensated for, but you enjoy. So it'll be interesting to see how it manifests.
Well, it is exciting. Where do you have your money these days? Please don't tell me under the mattress.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, no. I do a lot of physical. I do a lot of physical assets. That'd be real estate. I like self storage. I do some entertainment venues. I've been buying crypto off and on for about a decade, and I've been buying Chevron for the last maybe 30 years, and I bought some tech stocks along the way. So I think the idea is, I'd like to diversify, but at the same time, I call it diversification. If you're familiar, if you know your subject, if you study it, you can be more focused. And if you're unfamiliar, then it's best to buy an index fund or something where very diversified, so you have a broad exposure to a large number of opportunities.
Well, people preach diversification. Warren Buffett really has taken a different tack. He consolidates and picks really good businesses, and then he just throws in and doubles down.
I've owned Berkshire Hathaway for some time too. I really love it. Their shareholder meetings are fantastic, and what he talks about is diversification is protection from ignorance. But he said most people are just not good investors. They zig when they should zag. They get emotional. So he has good points, and he recommends things that are different. But if you do the work, I mean, he says he buys great companies and companies that any idiot could run because someday an idiot may run it. So he has some great quotes over the last 50 years at his shareholder meetings.
Well, he and Charlie Munger Uh, Rest in peace, Mr. Munger. But they do uh, have given us tremendous wisdom on many, many fronts. And
Absolutely.
I'm a big fan. But I also believe that there's some things you just really can't delegate. And then in the case where someone concludes that they're not savvy enough or smart enough or have the time to really dig in and research companies, then an index fund or a fund manager might be the right place to go. But my paradigm has always been nobody's going to look after my money like I'm going to look after my money. So I've always sort of gone it alone.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and the best investment is usually yourself, so it's your best yourself, your education, you're learning something or a side hustle. The returns you'll get from that oftentimes exceed what you would get by maybe dollar cost averaging into a mutual fund or something. But it's having, having consistency and having some discipline where you spend less than you make, you give some back to charity, and you keep some for your future.
Well, all these clowns that are predicting doom and gloom. I'm just, I'm in the opposite place. And
100%.
it's not, I hope that it's not blind optimism, but I remember Trump 1.0 and the huge gains that we all enjoyed during his administration then.
Sure.
But this time, he has gone to work much earlier, and he has accomplished so much more. And so I've been saying for the last 6 months on this program that Donald Trump is in real time, right before our very eyes, reshaping and remaking the American economy. And
There's
where
no
I'm coming
question
from
about
on that is the big, beautiful bill, which
it. Yeah.
codifies the tax cuts from 2017 and also ushers in new tax cuts. Deregulation, bureaucrats cannot impose new regulation without removing 10 existing regulations. Tariffs, 600 billion. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
that's knocking on $1 trillion a year.
Right.
And I've said, look, I'm all in favor of it with one caveat that they use the newfound money for deficit reduction. Then I think he will be a hero. Um, Additionally, the investment that companies are promising to make in this country, $15 trillion.
Oh, it's remarkable. That's so much. They'll create so many jobs. It's crazy. Yeah.
I mean, let the good times roll. What do you think?
No, it's coming. There's no question about it. And I think what he's doing is brilliant. And it's something that I was unaware of until I looked a little into it more recently. But there have been countries like China has been tariffing us 5, 10, 20% on certain items, and we're tariffing China 1, 2, and 3%. So we've been selling the similar or same U.S. goods abroad. So if we sell a car in China, we'll pay a 20% tariff. They sell a car in the U.S., they pay a 2 or 3% tariff. So it's been remarkable, the difference and how he's going back and renegotiating those. But I mean,
Well,
with the offshore investment of $15 trillion, that's almost equivalent to 1 year of the U.S. economy's gross output.
yeah, for sure. And I think the last piece really is for the Fed to come and join the party. I don't know what Powell's deal is. I mean, I've defended him for the
Hmm.
last 3 or 4 years, saying that I thought that he had done a masterful job of not wrecking our economy while getting inflation under control. And I'll stand by that. But now it does appear that he is acting out of pure politics
Mm.
and not to give us significant rate cuts when the inflation has now been effectively reduced to zero or within the Fed target. He's putting the brakes on this economy, and the people that he is hurting are middle class Americans who want a job and want to go back to work.
Sure.
But the interest rates are preventing companies, as you pointed out, from reinvesting and expanding their workforce. Instead, they're looking to trim the fat. And I think that goes directly back to Jerome Powell. I think it's time for him to go.
No, he's behind the ball, and if you'll look, he was too slow the last time when he was increasing rates. He was too slow on decreasing. So the things the Fed looks at are really they're rearview mirror sort of items. They're not very anticipatory. If you run a company of any size, you don't do well by reading your own reports and 3 months older, 6 months later. You do well by talking to your salespeople, talking to your customer, your end user, and you get instant feedback. And I think the Fed looks at old data to make current informations, and they should change to look at current data to make current information and current changes.
And I think that's why Trump fired that lady at the Bureau of Statistics. I mean, she was just putting out fake, false, phony information, and it appeared to be politically driven. And once she was out, we found out that it was a lot worse than what we had been told. And so, kudos to him for um, getting someone in the job who will actually give us good numbers. Who's eating your pie? Tell us about the book, Eric, and what inspired you to write it, and what are you trying to tell us there?
Well, I wrote the book during COVID. I had extra time, so I thought, well, I'm going to write a book. And what I noticed were people were detached, they were lonely, they'd given up hope. Then, if you remember the first predictions by the World Economic Forum and the World Health Organization, were something around 1 and 20% death rate around the globe. That was the first forecast. So people were terrified. And I started thinking, this is going to pass. Things always pass. They always do. This will pass. But on the other side of this, we need tools. So the first thing, my first chapter is called Permission to Dream. And I did that because if you talk to a kid who's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, they can tell you all they're going to do when they grow up. They have dreams of being an airline pilot, an astronaut, and that's it, permission to dream. And then as you get older, your world or your dreams get smaller, and by the time you're 40, you just want a hot meal and a nice place to sleep. So I'm like, how can we give ourselves permission to dream, permission to make mistakes, permission to grow, and kind of reframe any situation. So the reframing happened. It's one of my favorite things to do during COVID, where people who had an office job decided to open a service industry out of their home. I mean, they're working out of their home, and next thing you know, they're doing better in 3 or 4 months financially than they did in a 10-year career. So, and everyone had different results and different outcomes, but to have the freedom to dream and to make change and to be optimistic and grateful, I think is a great start to a better life.
It sounds like you're describing the proverbial side hustle. Do you encourage young folks to adopt a side hustle?
Absolutely. Sometimes the side hustle becomes the primary hustle, but it's I remember, when I was in college, I sold real estate and did some shopping center deal, and then when I wasn't doing that, I was teaching karate. I was going to school full time. And I had 2 side hustles, and I was making equivalent of I was doing really well financially. And not that that's the most important thing in life, but that was something that I enjoyed doing. And when I got out, I was able to focus and do multiple things. But in the book, we talk about permission to dream. We talk about how to set goals and really be honest and candid. And I think that's one of the things people miss today is Jack Welch, who's ran GE for many years, would always start a meeting. Tell me how things are, not how you wish they were, not how you want them to be, but how are they? And you can start off by saying, hey, I'm dead broke. I'm eating up with credit card debt. I don't know what to do next. That's a great place to start. And then you begin to reframe the situation. What could I do differently? How can I change my thinking? How could I challenge it, find a mentor, make massive change quickly? It's been done many, many times before, but people have forgotten the recipe.
I look back over my life and career, and I think that goal setting is one of the things that has helped me enjoy whatever success I have had in my career. And in my view, goals are about one of the most powerful things that anyone can do to help themselves. Would you agree?
They really are, and I've actually developed something called the Clarity Planner, and I'm giving it away for free now. And the idea is to take somebody. There's nothing more sad for me to meet with. I have 5 sons, and they have a lot of their friends are early to mid 20s, late 20s, and they have these fantastic dreams of what they want to do, but no real idea how to get there, no deadline, no strategic thought, nothing. They're all looking for the CEO job. When somebody calls them and gives them the CEO job, they're ready, right? But in the meantime, they're dreaming. So I made this clarity planner, and it's just simple. How do you get the clarity? How do you determine specifically what you want, specifically, and define it? Because if you don't define it, you're never going to attain it. And then how long do you want to give yourself to do it? And you could always, adjust it if it takes longer or less time, but the time, and then you want to define the activities that are mandatory to do, and then you prioritize them and do the most important thing first. It's very, very simple, but oftentimes the simple things are overlooked.
Every new year, just for whatever it's worth, I sit down and I have a pie divided into four parts, and I title it Work, Family, Self, and God.
There
And
you
I
go.
set goals for each one of those categories, and then I try and hold myself accountable throughout the year to see how I'm doing. Right now, I'll be honest, I'm a little behind schedule on the weight reduction plan, but I'm
Mhm.
not giving up for 2025. I just need to shed about 10 lbs and I'll be good. But uh, just writing it down, committing to it, and sharing your goals with other people that will also help you be accountable, I think is a very positive approach as well.
100%, and that's the premise of the book, the Who's Eating Your Pie, and it's faith, family, fitness, finance, and friends. And I get asked like, "Well, how'd you come up with the title?" And the idea was, and there's a pie with a like a dollar sign on it, and it's what was funny is my son was 9 years old. I was writing a check for my quarterly tax estimates, and I was like probably not in a great mood. And he goes, "Daddy, what are taxes?" And I'm thinking like, how do I communicate to a 9-year-old what taxes are, right? So I took my fork, I zeroed in on his apple pie, and I took probably 1/3 of it and a little bit of ice cream in one fell swoop and ate it. My mouth's full, and his face was just shocked, like, it's my pie, you know. And I said, "That's taxation." And then I went in for it.
Without representation in that
Yeah,
case.
exactly. Without no representation. Yeah, there's no bipartisan thing going on there. So I went in there for another forkful, and I was teaching karate at the time. So he blocks it with two hands. He just blocks my fork, and I said, "That's planning." I said
Man,
so.
planning and revolution.
You're right, exactly. And I tell my kids, I said, you make change for two reasons: out of inspiration or desperation. You know,
Mm,
and it's a lot more fun if you can do it with strategy and inspiration than waiting until you don't have any choices left.
100%. That desperation reminds me of a saying that Donald Keogh, who was the former president of the Coca-Cola Company,
Right.
shared with me about 40 years ago. And I had just a great sit down interview with him on Georgia Public Television. And two things I said, Mr. Keogh, what is your formula for success? And before I could finish the sentence, he said, have all the tough talk up front. And he said,
Wow.
and by the way, bad things usually only get worse. And that has stuck with me throughout my career.
That's pretty much true.
I
Yeah.
have had all the tough talk up front, and uh, when I realize that things are going the wrong way, I try and intervene earlier. And that's straight from the lips of Donald Keogh, who was a wonderful human being and one of my favorite all time folks in business.
That's memorable. Those words ring just as true today as they did 50 years ago. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Eric, where do people get the book?
So you can find it on. You can go to Amazon, look up my name, Erik Weir, Erikweir, or you can just search "Who's Eating Your Pie."
And if people want that free handout that you talked
Yeah.
about, how do they find it? How do they get it?
So go to Instagram. I'm at Erik Weir, Erikweir, and just DM me the word clarity. So DM me the word clarity, and I will send you the clarity planner for free.
I'm going to be your first taker on that because I'm going to DM you before this podcast and broadcast airs, which, by the way, we come to you every Saturday from noon to 2 on the John Fredericks Radio Network in Nashville, Atlanta, Richmond, Norfolk, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Morgantown, West Virginia, and Lynchburg, Virginia. We also come to you on cdm.press. You can find us there on on their 13 digital platforms. And of course, we're all over the web on the traditional social media platforms. Erik Weir, thank you for coming on The Truth today. It has been a pleasure and really appreciate your time.
It's my pleasure to tell you, and thank you for having me on. Thank you.